Thanks for being here. This is a roundtable discussion of some of the topics that are kind of relevant in the farm toy hobby, things that people have been talking about. My name's Dale Bernard. I guess I'm kind of the moderator because I'm the only teacher in the bunch, so they chose me for that. Introducing this fine panel of gentlemen at the far end is Mr. Jason Shireman. Next to him is Mr. Garrett Mock. Next to him is Mr. Sidney Sylvester. Right here is Mr. Seth Eberhard. And this is Mr. Rick Connor. And these gentlemen are all involved one way or another in the hobby very, very heavily. And so we would just like to start out with, how did you get involved with it? We'll start out with Jason. He's got the mic right there.
I think, like probably most of us, started off young, was around the farm all the time. My dad got into farm toy collecting when I was probably 8 or 10 years old, and so just would go to shows with him, and it kind of went from that. Somewhere my teens started customizing, and then it just kind of went from there to where we are today.
Growing up on a farm, like all farm kids, they had the sandbox full of everything. When I was in college is when I kind of started to realize, just screwing around on the internet and Facebook, that there was a lot more out there than I realized. And basically, as soon as I got out of college, I kind of just dove head first into collecting and then building from there.
So my story is probably a lot different than everybody else's. I always had farm toys when I was little, and my brother would customize and make his own, whatever he wanted to do. He always did mowers, which is kind of where mine came from. And when I got to be about 15 years old, I got my first resin 3D printer, and he talked me into designing a tractor for him. And it took me about 15 hours of just designing that first tractor. And we 3D printed that one, and spent maybe another 10 hours fine-tuning it, and then made about 4 or 5 different ones. And then I started selling those, and been doing it for 3 years, and this is where I am now.
Okay, so I wasn't a farm kid like a lot of the younger ones are that are in the hobby, but I am more what you call maybe a second generation collector. My dad, who just showed up, had a lot of toys. He was collecting some when I was real little, and we almost never missed a trip up to Dyersville. So, from the time I was real little, I was around tractors and I was loving it. And then it wasn't until I was older that I started building displays that I really personally got into the hobby. But yeah, I pretty much started out as what my dad started out with a long time ago.
I got involved back in 1981. I decided one day that I would like to try to reassemble the toys that I had as a kid that I played with. And the Farm Journal showed up one day and they had an article in there about collecting farm toys. I found out about the Toy Farmer, subscribed to it. I've been subscribing since '81. And did assemble all the toys that I had as a kid and have many more. Way too many, my wife would say.
Most of you know I'm Kurt Eberhard, and I got started here years ago in the farm toys. When I was a kid, Mom and Dad were poor, and I didn't get all the stuff that I wanted. I never did get over that. They find when the 16 scale tractors finally come to the market, more and more comes. I started buying them things, and I had quite a few of them. And Seth was just a little boy, and I was just not married too many years, and I knew I couldn't say nothing about it, so I put all these packages away in a big garbage sack, stuck them up in the rafters in the garage. One day when I was put around, I said, "Come on here, I got something to show you." Got the ladder and I pulled that bag down, I showed him all them tractors. I put them back up and said, "Now don't say nothing." A couple days later, he goes, "Hey, Mom, look what's in them sacks." I was in trouble, so. So that was the beginning, and then I kind of collected some miniatures for a while, and then Precision Classics come out. And they were so neat looking, I couldn't turn them down. So I started buying them, and then it didn't take long, I had everyone bought up that they come out with. And then there was, especially the higher detail tractors, they were getting pretty neat, they fit right in. So it wasn't long, and I had a good lineup of tractors started. And then I had a little $60 Chalmers, I was gonna decorate it up. And I found some Dakota toys and steps on it, and then I come to a show here and I met Chunky for the first time. He had them super tires and rims. So I started all over with it again. It didn't take long, and I ended up with lots of wheels. Started getting into the customizing, and then since I used to work for the Allis Chalmers dealer, I was kind of into fixing up the ACs, and still finding more every day. I think I wiped out all the 7,000 series tractors here to be found this show, except for the I got brand new ones because they're getting all cut apart. It's just, you can have a lot of fun with it. Meeting so many people here has just been awesome. It's just, somebody you've never seen before. I was at one show in Dargville, over an hour, sat at a table, some of them, another couple, and we started visiting, and it was 45 minutes till we could get away, and we finally just had a quick talk. We was keeping each other from seeing the show. We just, so many fantastic people, all from the same background, all the same thing in common. Everybody's so trusted. In a few cases, there's a few problems, but we have the most wonderful group of people in this whole collection group you could ever imagine. And I just can't believe it.
Hey, gentlemen, thank you. One of the things that we were thinking about is what would you folks like to see from the major manufacturers of farm toys? Is there anything specific that you would like to see? Jason,
Sure.
you're shaking your head. Here you go.
Yeah, so one of the, I don't know, kind of a side hobby I've gotten into is 1/64 scale die cast. And there are, you know, I mean, of course there's like Hot Wheels and things like that, but there are companies that make, let's call it higher end, higher detail versions of those. And they also are really good at how they display those cars in the packaging. Like, so a lot of them will come with a nice plastic base that, you know, maybe it looks like a driveway or a shop floor or something like that. And then the car will be screwed into that, and on top of that, there's a plexiglass clear case around it. And it, you know, that you can enjoy that without taking it out of the package and all that. Where, you know, Ertl, SpecCast is better than Ertl at it, if we're honest. But Ertl is still, you know, you have the cardboard, the card on the back of it. So if you want to take that out, or if you really want to look that over, you've got to destroy your packaging. You know, in the 64 scale world anyway. And I would love to see them kind of understand that there's a collector market. I mean, I know they understand that, but I would like to see them cater to the collector market as well as the toy market, and kind of realize those are two separate things, and there are things they can do, you know, to differentiate the two. And it, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be a completely new tractor, but maybe a tractor with some better detail, or, you know, just better packaging in general. So.
Very cool.
Anybody else? Jen, go ahead.
Couldn't disagree with you more. So I'm all 1/64th, and it's just because, like, looking at this table, you can make some amazing 16th scale, but on here you're gonna fit 4 or 5 big models. I'm not that kind. I want 100, so I want 64. And the packaging, I fully get the collector side. I'm not that guy. The first thing I do as soon as I get home from any show is throw all the packaging away, start looking everything over. How do I tear this apart? And then as far as what I want to see from manufacturers, it's kind of a loaded question for me, because I'm from eastern Colorado, out on the plains. We don't know what soybeans are. We don't know what 250 bushel corn is 9 out of 10 years. What I know is how to feed 60 to 120,000 head of beef cattle in one operation. How to do silage on mass scale, how to do all forage, alfalfa, stuff like that. So what I want to see out of the manufacturers is what nobody else wants to see for the most part. So like this fall to see SpecCast coming out with a merger. I was over the moon excited, and then you look online and everyone's going, why are they making that? So what I want is definitely far removed from what the majority wants, which is also why I've gotten into 3D printing, but apparently we'll talk about that later. So.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, as far as for manufacturers, I mean, I'm pretty happy with what they got. I'd like to see some more options from the non-green brands, even though 99% of what I collect is green. It'd be nice to have a few more options there, but other than that, I mean, I'm such a niche market, it doesn't matter.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really deal with, major manufacturers a whole lot. I don't really collect a whole lot of toys, and I don't really buy a whole lot of them. I more just make them, and, I always wanted to see more of SpecCast pullers. They used to make a lot of them when I was little. I have about every single one they made. And I've always wanted them to make more sleds, more tractors. They're doing better at that now, and they're a little more playable than the ones that I had. So there's not really a whole lot I can complain about with what they do. They're definitely getting better at making more tractors.
Well, personally, I'm not a big collector, I'm definitely more of a builder, but some of the things I like to see, like I said, between me and my dad, we've got a pretty big display, everything is out on display in his basement, so we really like the high detail stuff, it just makes something really neat to just sit there and look at. Personally, I like the older farm machinery models. I think new farm machinery is ugly, and I just don't really care for a model of a new machine. I'd rather see the older stuff that's, you know, the more classic pieces. Implements is something that you're starting to see a little bit more come out, but I think there's a lot more that could be done with implements. The one thing I don't like is you see a new tractor come out and then they make 10 different versions of the same casting. It just gets too repetitive. I mean, I know they have to do it to cover the cost, but just personally, it's, I don't know, just not as fun to collect something like that.
As a 16th scale collector, I'd like to see Bertle or whoever do more precision type tractors in 4-wheel drives and utility tractors with loaders and scrapers on the 3 points, things like that. There seem to be lacking in there. So, other than that, I'm pretty sure they're not gonna do either of those, although they have been doing some 4-wheel drives lately that are decent. Implements too, yeah. Nicely detailed implements. I could go more.
One thing I think would really be neat when it comes, Ertles, they're mainly into tractors, but, the implements itself, there never has been precision series of nice big field cultivators, columotors, stuff like that. But that would really be neat, rather than have to take time to build all that. That'd probably be my only way I ever have that kind of equipment, I'll have to get into it and figure out how to do it better, do that. But that's one item I would love to see them get into, making a full line of high detailed machinery. They have a lot of nice stuff, but it's too much plastic and it's not down into the fine precision shape. It's real nice though, but if they would try some precision toys, I think it would be good.
You gotta have something to hitch behind that precision tractor. I would like to see that. I would like to see a Gleaner A and a Massey 510. That's what I would do.
That's too. Wayne putting the bill a Gleaner E.
Any other comments on anybody from the audience? One of our other questions is, and there's probably two parts to it. What do you see as the future of this hobby going forward? And I think a big part of that has to do with 3D printing and what a lot of you fellows are doing with that. So, any comments?
Sure.
Jason,
I
sorry.
I mean, I can talk about anything.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, 3D printing, I don't want to say it's the future, it's here. I mean, it's taken this hobby by storm. It's going to get more accessible for everyone, more affordable for sure. I mean, it's pretty affordable now. The day is probably going to come where you're going to have a 3D printer in your house, and instead of buying a tractor from one of us, you're going to buy the file from one of us, hit print, and it's going to come out your printer, and you got it. That's, you know, that's not too far down the way here, if we're honest. Another thing I think is, I don't know if I want to call it radio control because there's already that, but in like the model train world, they've got cars and trucks that can move on a display. That's coming. We're going to come down here to the display contest one of these years, and there's going to be a tractor plowing the field. That's going to happen. It's coming pretty quick too. Virtual. If you guys know any young people, they love Farm Simulator, I think is what it's called. I know guys that spend just dozens and dozens of hours a week on that. That's going to be a lot of this hobby too, virtual reality, things like that. It's going to get pretty interesting pretty soon here, I think. One great thing though is like 3D printing and things like that have brought in a lot of young guys like Sydney. You'll see a bunch of them running around here, a lot of young guys making really interesting parts, tractors, implements, and things like that. And we wouldn't have those guys, I think, if that technology wasn't there, because the technology is kind of what brings them in, what interests them in this hobby. So, and I think most kids are learning CAD in school these days, so I think that helps too. But yeah, I think that's the future of all of this for sure.
Yeah, so to me, whenever you think of the future of the hobby, just look at the displays. The youth division has gotten insanely tough in the last couple of years because of access to all these amazing ideas from the guys that are posting on YouTube, all their how-to videos, to the guys that are 3D printing all these fine details. It's really brought in the youth. I mean, without 3D printing, I wouldn't hardly be in the hobby at all. I'd just be a random collector, looking for some cool die cast. The 3D printing has just kind of opened up this whole new world to where if there's something out there you want, there's now no reason that you can't have it. And so that's kind of how my entire business got started. Rockin' H over here, he was like, well, I don't want to build that. Here, go 3D print it. And it's been a whirlwind ever since. And I think more and more youth are catching on to that, and that's why this hobby is rapidly changing. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes in the next 10 years. I'll just leave it at that.
So as Jason mentioned, I only do 3D printing in my business, and I honestly wouldn't be here without 3D printing. I had my first 3D printer when I was in 7th grade. I got that for Christmas, and I learned all the skills I have on CAD by myself. I was better than the teacher in CAD class when I started my freshman year, and I was actually teaching him most of the things that he knows now. As far as where I think the hobby is going to go, I do agree with these guys that 3D printing is the future of custom tractors, custom toys, custom you name it. I mean, 3D printing has just honestly changed everything as far as what you can do, how much detail you can put into it. I truly wouldn't be into the custom or even the collecting world if it weren't for 3D printing.
Is it going beyond just resin? Are we getting into like metal alloy stuff with any of that?
Yeah, as far as in the future, there's going to be different technologies such as SLS. They use a powder and a laser to sinter metal together. So you're going to see stronger parts, smaller parts, And those machines are getting higher detailed, lower cost every day. And it's a matter of time before everybody has one of those in their house and has access to crazy technology like that.
I'm waiting for Mr. Conner to get one.
Just real quick, something to add, when you're talking the different materials, something that's kind of become popular in the last couple of years, think of whatever scale tractor back in the 80s. What was the one thing it was missing when it came from Ergo? Cab glass.
Yeah.
They have clear, transparent resin now, to where, I don't know if it's taken off in the 16 scale, 64th scale, it's kind of growing rapidly to where I can print cab glass for a model now. And that's been kind of the real game changer the last year or so.
Yeah.
So the metal alloys, stuff like that is definitely coming.
Yeah, I've kind of got the same feelings with the 3D printing. I mean, it's just incredible what can be done and the stuff that you see people building. So, I mean, I don't know, 10 years ago or however long it's been, I mean, 3D printing was pretty much unheard of. And then within that many years, it just took the hobby by storm. And it was technology. And I mean, there's 10 years from now, there could be some technology out there doing something for farm toys that we can't even imagine. So, I mean, it's hard to say what's coming down, but technology is pretty amazing, what can be done with a lot of stuff. As far as the hobby itself goes, you do see a lot of kids getting into it, and like you were saying with 3D printing, the kids are getting into that stuff. Once another generation is gone, it's kind of hard to say, because I mean, so many of the people that are in the hobby now are farm kids or were farm kids. I think that's the big thing that gets people into it. I mean, everybody knows how farming is going now, and the family farms disappearing, so it's hard to say there, but getting young people into it, especially like with something like 3D printing, is definitely a good way for the future. And I was just kind of thinking, as far as like the toys themselves, one thing I've noticed, I think with manufacturing, it's all coming down to cost, making stuff as cheap as possible. Like one example, those silage wagons that Spec has just came out with, they're a nice looking wagon, but they're almost all plastic. I mean, even the more high detail stuff is just getting more and more plastic on it. I mean, I don't like to see it, but that's just the way it is, so I think it's here to stay.
The future of the hobby. Listening to you folks, I know nothing about 3D printing. I see it on tables. It looks like it is definitely the future, so things are only gonna get better. I wish I knew what the future was. I'm a little worried about the prices, the hobbies, starting to get out of hand.
That's the next question that I wanted to pose. What do you think are some of the factors that are driving these prices, these auction prices up? Because basically what we'll pay for anybody are based off what they can get at auction now. So what do you think that's doing it?
I have no idea. I wish I knew. I wish I knew that I should sell mine or wait another week. I don't know.
Because I'm waiting, if you sell, I'm selling.
I think the future is definitely bright as far as nicer, more detail, but I just don't have a clue. If I knew, I'd know what to buy in the stock market.
Well, I think our collecting is gonna go stronger than ever. There's probably less percentage of farmers, bigger and less farmers, but at the same time, the people who are into the hobby are getting more and more involved. There might be, 20 years, there might be half the collectors, but they're going to be in it so much deeper that they're gonna keep the same amount of volume going, and I don't think it's gonna slow down. So yeah, that too. There's a lot of things. It's an investment that you have at the same time with the hobby. That's what saves me from giving up on it, because I know the money I spend isn't wasted. And it's just, well, it's gonna be a lot of things that's gonna help. Is I got a son-in-law that's a computer expert. He could make anything that I'm gonna want. So I got a big advantage there. And, but I see this, there might be less people in it, but what few people are in it are gonna keep, or get bigger at it, and keep the same size if there's gonna be a lot of people in it. It's never gonna die, it's gonna keep growing.
You gentlemen have any?
I know I hear a lot of people saying that 3D printing is almost ruining the hobby as far as taking away custom builders, making their stuff worth less because we can make more of it. The way I look at it is it's enabling someone that was either unable or didn't have the time to build something or create something that now they can. I do that with my kits. If somebody doesn't have the time to customize a tractor, turn it into a puller, they can buy a 3D printed kit, or they can design one 3D printed themselves, and they have an amazing piece to show off and to be proud of.
So kind of along those lines, like I said, I'm definitely more of a builder than anything, scratch building and a little bit of customizing, but like I said, 3D printing is incredible. The way I see it though, especially like with competitions and stuff, it's comparing apples and oranges when you're comparing a 3D printed piece to a scratch built piece. I mean, they both take a lot of skill and talent and time, but it's completely different. I mean, not saying it's a bad thing or anything, it's just two completely different things, and that's just one thing that I noticed from getting into the building myself.
Yeah, just kind of echoing that. I know from being around some custom build competitions, there's a lot of animosity starting to grow between scratch build and 3D print because they're completely separate things and they're treated as the same. Scratch build is amazing. I wish I had that skill. I do not. That's why I have fallen back to 3D printing, because making cut after cut, making it a square, I'd wind up with like an octagon. You know, there's a lot of guys here that build some amazing stuff, scratch build, and it's truly amazing. And to say 3D printing is hurting that, I have a hard time buying into that because, yeah, 3D printing has made some of that cheaper, but at the same time, it's also really pushed those scratch build guys to a new level compared to everybody else.
I agree. You're good. You sure?
Come on, let's argue.
I have a different opinion, come on.
Well, this is debate class.
Gentlemen, does anybody have any other question or any other comment that you'd like to address?
What are you saying?
Hobby's growing.
For sure. Yeah.
It's just growing, period.
Yeah.
There's more people coming in all the time.
Yeah,
New people.
You and I both see that
New
because
people.
of what we do with social media. You and I both know that
Yeah,
more than anyone.
lots of new people coming
Yeah,
in.
third party couldn't pick that up. He's saying the hobby's growing. The thing that's amazing is you look at the way prices are escalating for new in the box, and it's still being sold out instantly. And I think it's because the hobby's, the area of it is growing. You're getting more and more people involved, and that's a big reason I think prices are jumping the way they are. And, you know, supply chain crisis. Everything's got to go up, 30% right there.
Right.
I want to keep my mouth shut, but I think there's just a lot of different avenues getting looked at today.
Oh,
You know, you go back 20 years, they had one road.
Yeah.
Earl. You know, and it just slowly, okay, it's spec cast scale models coming into the picture. And I think right now there is just so many more avenues out that Mr. Shireman, he can produce a line of products, so Sydney there, he can produce a line of products, and I just think that's just expanded it. And it's actually caused a lot of competition against the major manufacturers.
Yeah.
It's kind of pushing them to a different level too, and I don't know if they're accepting it or pushing back toward it, or they even care, I don't know. But I do know this much, they have expressed opinions about it. I have heard their opinions, whether good, bad, or otherwise, but realistically, I think it's honestly pushing the major manufacturers to realize they gotta step their game up too.
Yeah, well, and I think that's something I know both you and I have heard from the big guys, the manufacturers, that I think, and 3D printing has something to do with it, but now a collector can go get a high detailed tractor 4-wheel-drive implement from anybody.
Well,
And that's made Ertl and SpecCast go, okay, we've kind of got to step this up a little bit. And I think the Prestige Select line is a direct result of that. Now we're seeing those, you know, the high detail WA, the high 80, 50.
And I'll even add to another level, I know you guys are consistently talking about 3D printing, but you're forgetting a lot of other aspects. Laser cutting,
Absolutely.
CNC machining, you know, there's a lot of that stuff that's out there too, that's just as viable.
You bet.
That is now available to Joe Schmoes like us.
Yeah, you know, for a couple grand, you can have a CNC machine sitting in your garage. So,
You know, I mean, get
yeah.
this stuff laser cut out, you know, you can get it done for pennies versus you go back a few years and you were talking some serious investment, they kind of had a stranglehold on the market.
Yeah.
An unchallenged stranglehold. You know, I think that's where a lot of your differences you're seeing is today is they don't have quite that stranglehold on they once used to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, like you said, there's more avenues. I think social media has a lot to do with that because it's reached people that wouldn't have maybe known that there's a hay merger coming out or that Sydney does pulling tractors or whatever, you know. So, but now they can see that and they go, oh man, I've always wanted this international pulling tractor. I'm gonna get a hold of this guy, you know. So I think that's helped with the growth of this hobby and to some extent put the big makers on notice a little bit that they've got to do a little better. So. Anybody else?
Is there any other business that should come before this assembly? I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it.